$46. That's your balance. 5 in the morning. You're standing in a warehouse parking lot in Columbus, Ohio, breath fogging up in the cold. Your shift starts in 6 minutes. You check the app one more time. The number doesn't change. It never does at 5 a.m. 27 years later, you'll check your balance again. Same app, same thumb, same habit. The number will have zeros behind it that don't fit on one screen, and the guy scanning your groceries that morning will have no idea. Neither will your neighbor. Neither will your own mother, for a while. This isn't a story about getting rich, it's about what happens when you get rich, and nobody ever finds out. You're 22. You make $17 an hour scanning boxes on a warehouse line outside Columbus. Not glamorous, not even close. Your shift starts at 5, ends at 1:30. Your feet know the concrete before your brain wakes up. You live with 2 roommates in a 3-bedroom off Route 33. Your room has a mattress, a lamp, and a backpack you bought for $6 at a thrift store on Parsons Avenue. Canvas. One strap is fraying, you don't care. That backpack goes everywhere. Work, grocery store, the one bar you go to on Fridays when you can afford it. Rent is $410. Split 3 ways on a house that used to be someone's grandmother's. The kitchen smells like old gas even when nothing's cooking. You open Instagram on your lunch break. A guy from your high school just posted a photo from Cabo. Another one's showing off a home office setup, dual monitors, a standing desk, a candle that costs more than your grocery budget for the week. You don't hate them. You just close the app faster than you used to. This is the part nobody talks about because there's nothing dramatic about it. You're not in crisis. You're not drowning. You're just quiet, doing math nobody sees. You open a high-yield savings account on a Tuesday night, 4.6% APY. You don't fully understand what that means yet. You just know it's better than the 0.01% your checking account gives you. You set up an automatic transfer, $40 a week, every Friday, before you can spend it on anything else. You don't feel rich doing this. You feel nothing, honestly. $40 disappears into an account, and the account doesn't say thank you. Here's what starts changing, though. Not the number. You. You start noticing things at the thrift store that aren't for you to wear. A jacket in good condition. A pair of boots barely broken in. You buy them for $8, photograph them on your bed with decent lighting, and post them on Depop. The jacket sells for $31 4 days later. You sit on your mattress and stare at the notification. $23 profit. On one jacket. From one trip to a store you were already walking past on your way home. Nobody claps. Nobody notices. You don't tell your roommates. You do it again the next weekend. Then the weekend after that. Some weeks you make $18, some weeks you make $60. It's not a business. You don't even call it that. It's just a thing you do because the math makes sense, and doing nothing has never made sense to you. By the end of the year, you've got $2,400 in savings and a couple hundred more moving through Depop every month. $2,400 won't change your life. You know that, but something else happened this year that the number doesn't show. You learned the difference between spending money and moving money. Most people your age haven't learned that yet. Some never will. The rule is simple, and nobody says it out loud at 22. Small, boring, repeated, beats big, exciting, and once. You don't know it yet, but this is the year everything after you gets built on. You're 24 now, same warehouse, different title. They call you a shift lead. It pays $2 more an hour. You take it. Not because you love it, because it's more. Your Depop side thing has slowed down. Thrift stores near you got picked over. Everybody's doing it now. The margins shrank the way margins always do once enough people notice something works. But you've got $6,100 sitting in that high-yield account. And for the first time, you start asking a different question. Not how do I make more money? A different one. What can money do without me? You start reading, not self-help, not motivational garbage, actual forum threads, Reddit posts from guys who own laundromats, YouTube videos from a guy in Tulsa who talks about ATM routes like other people talk about fantasy football. You learn something that surprises you. There are still gas stations, small liquor stores, laundromats, places that don't have their own ATM, and the owner would love one because every withdrawal means a customer who's now holding cash in their store. You learn ATM operators typically split the surcharge fee with the location. $2.50, $3 a withdrawal, sometimes more. You also learn the part the forum posts gloss over. Cash loading costs gas and time. Processing fees eat into the split before you ever see it. Machines get vandalized, locations close without warning and take your income with them. The margin only works if the foot traffic's actually there. You find a used ATM online for $2,800. You almost don't buy it. You sit with the listing open for 4 days. This isn't like buying a jacket for $8 and reselling it for $30. This is real money. Real risk. The kind of decision your parents would call reckless if they knew. You buy it anyway. You drive it to a convenience store 11 minutes from your apartment. The owner's name is Deja. She runs the place with her son on weekends. You strike a deal. She gets 30% of the surcharge for hosting it. You handle loading the cash and the maintenance. Handshake deal. No lawyer. Probably should have had one. You didn't. First month, the machine processes 41 withdrawals. After the split, the processing fees, and the gas to drive out and reload it twice, you net $206. $206. You stare at that number the way you stared at the $23 jacket. It wasn't magic. The numbers only worked because the location had enough foot traffic, and after every cost came out, the margin was still worth the drive. The machine doesn't know your name. It doesn't care if you're having a bad day. It just sits there, taking cards, spitting out 20s, doing its job, whether you're watching or not. As long as somebody keeps it stocked, keeps it running, keeps the relationship with Deja good. This is the first time you understand it. Not intellectually, in your chest. There's a difference between money you trade hours for directly and money that depends on a system running. A system you still have to maintain. Just not by standing behind a register for it. You put the next 4 months of profit toward a second machine. Then a third. Your roommates think you got a raise. You let them think that. It's easier than explaining a hardware business you're running out of a Honda Civic on weekends. Here's the part that doesn't show up in the numbers though. You stop checking your bank app every day. You used to check it out of fear. Is it enough? Did something bounce? Am I okay? Now you check it out of something closer to curiosity. That shift takes most people years. It took you about 18 months, and you didn't even notice it happening until it already had. 3 machines, $590 a month, net, most months. Some months less, when a machine goes down, or a location falls through. It's not enough to quit your job. Not close, but it's enough to prove something. The system holds up when you actually run the numbers honestly. And once you know that, you start looking at every quiet, boring, unglamorous business around you completely differently. You're 27. You quit the warehouse job 8 months ago. Not dramatically. No speech. You just gave 2 weeks notice on a Tuesday, and nobody blinked. You work full-time managing your machines now. 9 ATMs across 3 counties. Net income most months sits around $1,900. After cash runs, processing fees, and the occasional machine that goes dark for a week because a location closed without telling you. It's not a lot. It's also nothing. You've got $14,200 saved. And you find a listing that changes the shape of everything. A self-storage facility outside a town in Indiana you've never heard of. 24 units, chain-link fence, gravel lot. The kind of place you drive past 1,000 times and never once think about who owns it. Asking price is $91,000. You don't have that. Not close. This is the first time you walk into a commercial bank instead of a regular branch. Different building, different energy. The loan officer's name is Walt. He doesn't smile the way tellers smile at people depositing paychecks. He asks about occupancy rates, not your feelings. You've done your homework. 18 of the 24 units are rented. Average $68 a month. You show him a spreadsheet you built yourself, staying up until 2 in the morning 3 nights in a row to get the numbers right. Walt approves a loan for $63,000. You put down the rest. You close on the property on a Thursday in March. You drive out to see it in person for the first time as the owner. Standing in the gravel lot, wind cutting through your jacket, you realize something strange. Nobody's here. No ribbon cutting. No one to tell. You call your mom. She asks if it's safe. You say yes. She asks if you're eating enough. You say yes to that too. She doesn't ask about the money because she doesn't fully understand what you just did, and you don't explain it well enough for her to. That night, you're wearing the same backpack, same fraying strap from 5 years ago. You could have bought a new one. You never think to. Here's what starts happening that you didn't expect. People start asking what you do. You give the short version. I own some storage units. That's it. That's the whole sentence. Watch what happens on their face when you say it. Nothing, usually. Storage units don't sound impressive. Nobody pictures a yacht when you say storage units. Nobody asks a follow-up question. You notice you like that. You're not hiding anything. You're just not handing anyone a reason to look closer. The facility isn't glamorous. Month 4, a unit door rusts shut, and you drive out with a can of WD-40 and spend 40 minutes on your knees in the gravel fixing it yourself. Month 7, a renter skips out owing $240. You eat the loss. That's the business. Nobody warns you about the WD-40 part in the YouTube videos, but by month 9, occupancy hits 22 of 24 units. Net income after the loan payment, insurance and maintenance sits around $810 a month. 2 years in, something else happens that has nothing to do with the monthly numbers. A property manager 2 towns over mentions, almost in passing, that self-storage in your area has been reappraising higher. More people renting units, less new supply going up. You get the facility reappraised out of curiosity more than anything. It comes back at $118,000, $27,000 higher than what you paid, on paper, without you lifting a finger toward that number specifically. You didn't do anything to earn that jump, except own the thing and keep the loan current. That's the first time you understand there are 2 different ways money grows on you at once. The rent checks are one. What the thing itself is worth is a completely separate number, moving on its own, and it doesn't ask your permission either. Combined with the ATM route and the equity sitting in the storage facility, your net worth crosses $95,000 this year. Most of it isn't cash. Most of it is on paper, tied up in a gravel lot in Indiana you visit maybe once a month. Here's the thing nobody tells you about this level. It's not exciting. There's no moment where confetti falls. There's just a gravel lot in Indiana, a can of WD-40, and a spreadsheet that keeps quietly proving itself right. The rule that shows up here, the one you don't say out loud to anyone. Boring is not the opposite of wealth. Boring is usually what wealth actually looks like while it's being built. You drive home that night past a billboard for a payday loan place, past 3 fast food drive-thrus backed up onto the road, past a car dealership with balloons tied to the antennas. None of it means anything to you anymore. You're thinking about unit occupancy. That's when you know something in you has already shifted, even if the bank account hasn't caught up yet. You're 30. The ATM route is up to 15 machines now, spread across 4 counties. You hired someone part-time to help with cash loading. His name's Marcus. No relation to anything, just a guy from the gym who needed hours and turned out to be reliable. You bought a second storage facility 11 months ago. 36 units this time, in a town so small it doesn't have a stoplight. And you just closed on something new. A self-serve car wash. 4 bays, vacuum stations, one of those machines that takes cards without you standing there. You didn't plan to get into car washes. You were driving through a town looking at a different storage listing, and passed one with a for sale sign taped inside the window with duct tape. You called the number out of curiosity more than anything. The owner was retiring. 68 years old. Ran it for 22 years. He wanted out fast and didn't care much about maximizing the price. You had it appraised before you closed. The equipment and the land together were worth closer to $190,000. He sold it to you for $140,000. That gap, the $50,000 between what he sold it for and what it was actually worth, becomes equity. The moment you sign. You didn't earn it through cash flow. You earned it by being the person who called the number on a Tuesday instead of driving past it. You finance most of it, and by month 3, it's already clearing about $1,100 a month after the loan payment. People will always need to wash their car. That need doesn't check the news. It doesn't care about interest rates. Combined, everything you own now brings in around $5,200 a month, most months, between the route, the storage units, and the car wash. Your salary from the job you don't have anymore is a memory. This is the year you hire an accountant. Her name is Denise. She's been doing books for small business owners for almost 2 decades. Reading glasses on a chain. A voice that doesn't waste words. You bring her a folder. Bank statements, loan documents, tax forms from 3 different LLCs you set up without fully understanding why you needed 3, just that someone on a forum said you should. She flips through it slowly. Doesn't say anything for a while. Then she looks up and says something that sticks with you for years. This is the most deliberately uninteresting portfolio I've seen in 19 years of doing this. She means it as a mild criticism. You take it as the best compliment anyone's ever given you. Because that's exactly what you've built. Not a brand. Not a pitch deck. Not something you'd post about. Just quiet things that solve boring problems for strangers, backed by real equipment and real property that pay you every month, whether you're watching or not. Denise runs your combined numbers for the first time. Cash in the accounts, equity in 2 storage facilities, equity in the car wash. Total net worth, right around $310,000. You don't feel it the way the number sounds. You're still driving the same car. You still split rent, technically, except now you own the building you're renting a room in through an LLC, which took Denise 20 minutes to explain, and you still don't fully understand. Here's where it gets interesting, though. Not the money. The way people start reacting to you. You go to a small business networking mixer downtown, mostly because Marcus talked you into it. There's a guy there, in a plain white t-shirt, that you'd later learn costs $340. You know, because someone mentions the brand later and you look it up out of curiosity. He's got a smartwatch, limited edition, the kind that sells out online in 9 minutes. He drove a leased Cybertruck. Talks about his portfolio, the way some people talk about their fantasy football team, loud, in the direction of whoever might be listening. You showed up in a 2014 Corolla with a cracked windshield you keep meaning to fix. You're wearing a hoodie from a 5K you ran in college. He asks what you do. You say, I own a car wash and some storage units. You watch his face do the math. Corolla, hoodie, storage units. He nods, says something polite, and turns slightly towards someone else in the room. In his head, you've already been sorted. Comfortable maybe? Not worth the full pitch. Good. That small, quiet dismissal is worth more than he'll ever know, because the moment someone underestimates you, they stop watching you. And the moment they stop watching you, you get to just live your life. This isn't modesty. You want to be honest with yourself about that. It's not some deep philosophical piece with money. It's a strategy, and you know it, and you're fine with knowing it. The Corolla isn't a statement. It's a tool. It starts every morning. It doesn't ask anything of you. Every dollar that isn't going toward a car payment is a dollar sitting somewhere else, in something you own, quietly worth more than you paid for it. You leave the mixer early, talk to 2 people you actually wanted to talk to, skip the group photo, drive home in the Corolla with the windshield crack catching the streetlight the whole way. You don't fix it that week either. You're 34. The route's grown to 21 ATMs, 2 storage facilities, 60 units combined. The car wash added a second location 18 months ago. Same model, same duct tape kind of deal you seem to keep finding. Denise runs the numbers with you every quarter now. Not because you don't trust yourself, because a second set of eyes catches things you're too close to see. This is the year she pulls up your combined statement and goes quiet for a second longer than usual. You crossed $1 million this quarter, she says. Just so you know. You ask what that actually changes. She explains it plainly. Your financial situation now meets one of the SEC's criteria for what's called an accredited investor. net worth over $1 million outside your primary home, or income over $200,000 for 2 years running. It's not a badge, it's a box on a form. But checking that box means certain private offerings become legally available to you, ones that aren't marketed to the general public, because regulators assume you can absorb the risk and afford the lawyers if something goes wrong. Nobody mailed you anything when you crossed it. No certificate, no phone call. You just quietly became eligible to sign different paperwork than you used to. A guy Denise works with runs books for a property management group, mentions a fund she thinks you should look at. A cluster of 12 cabins in the Smoky Mountains, fully furnished, booked through a short-term rental platform, managed top to bottom by a company that takes 18% off the top and handles everything. Guests, cleaning, damage, reviews, all of it. Minimum buy-in is $50,000 for a fractional stake. 5-year lockup. You can't touch the money before then, and if the fund underperforms, or the manager turns out to be worse than the pitch deck, there's no getting it back early just because you changed your mind. You read the offering documents twice. All 31 pages. You don't understand every line, but you understand the ones that matter. Occupancy projections. The cap on management fees. What happens if a cabin needs a new roof? What happens to your $50,000 if the whole thing underperforms for 3 straight years? You wire the money on a Thursday morning, sitting in your car outside the second car wash, waiting on a part delivery. No hesitation this time. Not like the ATM. $4 felt like it 24. This time, it just feels like another decision, made with the same calm you'd use to reorder detergent for the bays. That's the part that surprises you more than the money does. How ordinary it feels now to move $50,000 into something you can't touch for 5 years. The cabins start distributing quarterly. First payout 4 months later is $1,100. Modest, but it required nothing operational from you. No drive out to the mountains, no key handed to a guest, no cleaning between check-ins. Somebody else runs it. You just own a piece of it, and you're locked in either way. This is a different kind of holding than the ATM route or the storage units. Those still need you a little. A phone call here, a repair there. This one runs entirely without your hands on it, for better or worse, for 5 full years. Here's the thing about this level nobody tells you in advance. The opportunities stop needing to be found. They start getting brought to you, and it's on you to actually read the fine print, instead of just being flattered that someone thought to call. A regional bank you've never worked with sends a letter about a private lending program. A guy you met once at a hardware store who owns 4 laundromats himself mentions a private note deal, lending directly to a small business owner at 11%, secured against equipment. You don't say yes to that one yet. You just take the number and put it in a drawer. You notice something changing in how invitations arrive. At 22, you were searching. Now, doors open slightly on their own, because your name shows up in the right spreadsheet at the right bank. That doesn't mean every door is worth walking through. None of this shows up on your face. You still drive the Corolla. The windshield crack finally got fixed, not because you cared, but because it failed inspection. You still carry the backpack. The strap got restitched by a shoe repair guy for $6 instead of being replaced. Some habits you keep on purpose. This one, you're not sure if it's purpose or just forgetting to change. You're about to learn something harder than any of that, though. Not about money, about people. Your phone rings on a Wednesday night. It's Tyler. Tyler's been your best friend since you were 19. You met stocking shelves at a hardware store the summer before everything in your life started splitting off from his. He was at your dad's funeral. Front row. Didn't say much, just stood next to you the whole time so you wouldn't be standing alone. He calls sometimes just to check in, no agenda, just a Wednesday, just your name on his screen. Tonight's different, you can hear it in the first 10 seconds. He's been building a mobile detailing app for 2 years. Book a car wash, guy shows up to your driveway, does the whole thing while you're at work. Good idea. Real demand. He's got 400 repeat customers already, all word of mouth, no marketing budget. He wants to expand, hire 2 more detailers, buy a second van, build out the booking software properly instead of running it off a shared Google Sheet. He needs $60,000. You could send it before he finishes the sentence. You know that as he's still talking, $60,000 against what you've built is smaller than a rounding error. You could transfer it from your phone right now, sitting in your kitchen, and not feel it. Not even slightly. You don't send it. You sit there with the phone against your ear, and you feel something you don't have a clean word for. It's not stinginess. It's not distrust. It's something closer to dread, honestly, because you already know something Tyler doesn't. Money handed to someone who isn't structurally ready doesn't solve the problem sitting underneath it. It just makes the problem faster and more expensive. You've seen this before. Not with Tyler. With other people. A cousin who took a loan for a business that couldn't tell the difference between revenue and profit and burned through the money in 5 months and burned through the relationship right along with it. If the foundation's not there, capital doesn't build anything. It just accelerates whatever was already cracked. So instead of wiring the money, you ask if you can come by Saturday morning. You sit at his kitchen table with a legal pad for 3 hours. You go through his numbers with him. Not lecturing, just asking questions. What's your cost per detail, all in, gas and product, and his own labor? He doesn't know, he's been guessing. You ask about the lease on the space he wants for the second van. What happens in month 14 if bookings drop 20%? He doesn't know that either. Here's the part that's harder to explain than any of the numbers. You're not just teaching him spreadsheets. You're watching your best friend realize, in real time, that he's been running blind for 2 years. You keep going anyway. By the 4th Saturday, Tyler's renegotiated 1 vendor contract, found a small business loan program through the city he qualified for the whole time and never knew existed, and restructured his expansion so he doesn't need $60,000 from anyone. He needs 18. He gets it through the program. No interest for the first year. He calls you the night the paperwork clears. His voice cracks a little, the way people's voices do when something they fought for actually shows up. He says he couldn't have done it without you. You don't tell him what you could have wired in 60 seconds. You never will, probably. The story needs to be his, built on his decisions, owned by him in a way a check from you never could have made possible. Here's the cost, nobody warns you about at this level. It's not the money you didn't send. It's the specific loneliness of understanding someone's situation more clearly than they understand it themselves, and choosing to let them struggle through it anyway. Because struggling through it is the only thing that actually works. You've done a version of this 3 more times since, with 3 other people. It costs you something every single time. They tell you what silence protects you from. Nobody tells you what silence costs. You're 43. Denise sends you a summary every quarter now, same format she's used for years, no decoration, just numbers in neat rows. You used to read them at your kitchen table with coffee. Now you read them wherever you happen to be, because none of it feels urgent anymore. It just feels true. Here's what's inside the folder this year. The ATM route, 26 machines now, spread across 5 counties, combined net around $3,100 a month, after the usual bleed. A machine down for repair, a location that closed and took 2 months to replace. 2 storage facilities from before, plus a third one you picked up 2 years ago outside a college town. Another 60 units. Occupancy running high because students need somewhere to put their stuff every May, whether the economy's good or bad. All 3 have been reappraised since you bought them. Combined, they're worth close to $2 million more than what you paid and financed, mostly because storage demand in your markets kept climbing while new construction didn't keep up. You didn't do anything to earn that number except keep the loans current and answer the phone when a unit door rusted shut. 3 car washes now instead of 2. You bought the 3rd from a guy retiring in Kentucky, same pattern as always, below what it appraised for, because he wanted out fast, more than he wanted top dollar. The cabin fund, still locked up, still distributing quarterly, now worth almost triple what you put in 5 years ago. And the newest piece, a private stake in a small chain of auto repair shops. 4 locations, you don't run them, you don't fix a single car. A friend of Denise's brought you the deal 2 years ago, because the owner needed capital to open a 4th location and didn't want a bank loan eating his margins for the next decade. You put in $200,000 for 18% of the company. Last year, the chain did $4.1 million in revenue. Your 18% of the business, based on what similar shops have sold for, is worth somewhere around $1.1 million now. On paper, until someone actually buys it, it's a number. Not cash in a drawer. Denise flips through the folder slowly, the way she always does, and says the same kind of thing she said 13 years ago, just with more weight behind it now. This is genuinely one of the most boring portfolios I've ever built for anybody. You laugh. She's not wrong. There's nothing in that folder anyone would post about. No tech startup, no crypto, no headline, just laundromats, storage units, cars getting washed and fixed. Every single day, whether anyone's watching or not. And underneath all of it, quietly, the value of what you own climbing on its own schedule, separate from whatever comes in each month. Total across everything, cash flow and equity combined, sits somewhere around $9,800,000. Most of it isn't sitting in an account. Most of it is tied up in gravel lots and car wash bays and 18% of a company you visited maybe 6 times. She asks, not for the first time, if you've thought about anything more growth-oriented. Real estate development, a tech investment, something with a story attached to it. You tell her no. You've had this conversation before. Here's what you understand now that you didn't understand at 22. Every single thing in that folder serves a need that doesn't go away. People need somewhere to put their extra stuff. People need clean cars. People need their cars fixed when they break. None of that depends on a headline, a trend, or whether some app is still cool next year. You drive home in a car that's now 6 years old, radio playing something you're not really listening to. Here's the part that's harder than the accounting, though. There's a tension that's been building in you for a while, and it doesn't show up in any spreadsheet Denise sends. You want sometimes for someone to know. Not everyone. Not the guy in the Cybertruck from that mixer years ago, but someone. A version of recognition that isn't performance. Just being seen accurately, once, by somebody who matters to you. You think about telling your mom the real number. You've thought about it for 3 years now. Every time you get close, you stop. Not because you don't trust her, because you've watched what happens to people the moment their family finds out. Requests start showing up disguised as concern. Distance shows up disguised as respect. Nobody means to change how they treat you. It just happens, the way weather happens, and there's no reasoning with weather. So the folder stays quiet, you stay quiet. The car washes get power washed every Tuesday whether you're thinking about them or not. And the rent checks land in the same account they've landed in for years, and nobody at your gym or your barbershop or your kid's school has any idea what's actually happening underneath your ordinary week. The rule this year is the hardest one to sit with. Money changes how people look at you the second they know about it. It was never about changing who you are. You already knew that somewhere. This is just the year it stopped being a theory and started being something you carry. You fold the summary and put it in a drawer with the others. 21 years of them now, going back to a folder that used to hold nothing but a Depop receipt and a bank statement showing $2,400. Same drawer, same handwriting on the tabs, mostly, except Denise's has gotten a little shakier the last couple years. You notice that more than you notice the number at the top of the page. You're 49. You haven't worked a regular job in 19 years, and somehow you're busier than you've ever been. The 6 years since Denise's last folder didn't move the needle with 1 or 2 big moments. It moved because you kept doing the same thing, just at a bigger scale, for 6 more years straight. The storage facility outside the college town sold to a developer for $1.4 million on a $180,000 purchase. That part happened early in those 6 years. And instead of sitting on the cash, you put almost all of it into 3 more facilities across 2 states, buying the same way you always had. below appraisal, from owners who wanted out fast more than they wanted top dollar. By year 6, you're not running 3 storage facilities, you're running 7, and every single one of them has been reappraising upward the same way the first one did, because storage demand kept climbing in small markets nationwide and construction never caught up. The auto repair chain sold to a regional consolidator 2 years ago. Your 18% was worth just under $2 million, cash at closing. That money didn't sit either. Most of it went into the private lending fund Denise's contact had mentioned years back. The one you only put a toe into at first. You expanded your position considerably once you'd watched it perform for 2 years without a single missed distribution. It's been compounding quietly since, interest reinvested rather than pulled out, the way the whole portfolio has always worked. The car washes went from 3 locations to 6. The ATM route, 26 machines at its peak, got trimmed down to 18. You sold off the weakest locations to a younger operator, 2 towns over, who reminded you a little of yourself at 24. And used the proceeds toward the storage expansion, instead of managing routes you barely had time for anymore. None of any of it happened because you got smarter. It happened because you stayed in ordinary, unglamorous things long enough for the ordinary things to compound on top of each other. Cash flow buying more assets, assets appreciating on their own schedule, appreciation getting reinvested into more assets, 6 years running, without you doing anything that would make an interesting story if you told it out loud. This morning you're standing in the parts aisle of an auto supply store outside Dayton, not because you have to be. You've got people for most of this now. But one of the car washes has a vacuum hose that keeps losing suction, and you were already out running errands. So you stopped. You're holding a replacement hose in one hand, checking the fitting size against a photo on your phone when the email comes in. Subject line, quarterly summary. Final. From Denise. Same font she's used for over 20 years. You almost put the phone back in your pocket. You usually read these at home with coffee, not standing in a parts aisle under fluorescent lights that hum a little too loud. Something in the preview line stops you. You open it. Read the top number once. Read it again, slower, the way you read something when part of you doesn't trust your own eyes. Total verified net worth, across every holding, every property, every fund, cash and equity combined. $47,200,000. You stand there for a second. A guy 2 feet away is comparing prices on wiper blades, doesn't look at you once. Somewhere in the back of the store, a forklift beeps as it backs up. Nobody here knows. The forklift doesn't know. The guy with the wiper blades doesn't know. You're a person holding a vacuum hose, standing in fluorescent light, and the number in your hand doesn't change how the floor feels under your shoes. You'd always imagined this moment would feel like something. A shift in the air. Some kind of seam between before and after that you could actually feel yourself cross. There's no seam, there's just a parts aisle and a hose that still needs replacing. You think for a second about the parking lot outside that warehouse in Columbus. 27 years ago now, 5 in the morning. $46 in an account, breath fogging up in the cold, 6 minutes until your shift started. You reply to Denise, 3 words, thanks, looks right. Then you pay for the hose, and you drive to the car wash, and you fix it yourself, kneeling on wet concrete for 20 minutes with a wrench you've had since you were 24. The backpack's in the passenger seat. Same canvas one from the thrift store on Parsons Avenue. The strap's been restitched twice now. You still haven't replaced it. You're not sure anymore if that's sentiment or just habit that forgot to stop. Here's what you understand now that you couldn't have explained at 22, even if someone had sat you down and tried to tell you directly. The feeling never changes. $206 from your first ATM felt like something you couldn't name. $47 million feels like the exact same thing, just with more zeros behind it. That's nothing. That might be everything actually, because it means the feeling was never about the number. It was never about outsmarting anything either. Every year of it was the same handful of decisions, made again and again, at a slightly bigger scale each time. You drive home the long way, past the second storage facility, past the gas station where your very first ATM still sits in the corner, still working, still doing its job for a store owner who isn't Deja anymore, but someone new who bought the place from her 3 years back. Nobody in your town knows what you're actually worth. Your neighbor still thinks you own a few car washes, some storage places. He's not wrong. He's just off by several zeros, and you've never once corrected him. Somewhere tonight, in a warehouse parking lot outside a different city, someone's checking their banking app at 5 in the morning. $41. Or $52. Or $6 and change. Breath fogging up in the cold, shift starting in 6 minutes. They think this is a story about being broke. It isn't. Not really. It's a story about whether they open a savings account tonight and set up one small transfer and never tell anyone about it. The backpack doesn't need to change. Not yet. Maybe not ever, just the account.